Hey guys, 14 Fluffies here. Today with a new video, I will be bringing back my old series called Card Wars, where we compare multiple cards of a similar usage and see which is the best or better. And in this situation, it's going to be hero themed, like most of my content lately, and it's going to be a three-way competition between the three level 4 Destiny heroes that see competitive play: Celestial, Decider, and Draw Hand. Now, this might be a little bit of a longer video for the Card Wars standards because of the fact that I will be thoroughly dissecting interactions that all three of these cards have with heroes, as well as comparing their pros, as well as comparing pros and cons. So, as to avoid making this have like be another 20-minute video, let's just start straight off with the first card, and that would be Celestial. Celestial is by far the most commonly played of the level 4 Destiny heroes, and it sees the most competitive results. And the reason why it does is because it's essentially a Destiny hero equivalent of Bowman that can always get its draw effect. So yeah, anytime when you have no cards in hand and you will have, and this card has been in the graveyard for a full turn, you are able to banish it in a Destiny hero from your graveyard to draw 2 cards. And another thing that is less so well known about this card is that if it declares an attack, you can destroy a face-up spell that an opponent controls. And so, starting with the pros, as I mentioned with its removal effect, it is a very unique effect, and it's something that heroes actually don't have a whole lot of. Even though, yes, it is restricted to the battle phase, it is still a very unique way of actually removing cards. It can let you get rid of pesky field spells, not called Mystic Mine, sadly, because it activates. It'll let you get rid of things like, say, Hidden City, or what's that other one? Magical Meltdown. It can let you get rid of Hidden City and Magical Meltdown pretty easily, although, like, good luck resolving this effect against Invoked with Mechaba on the field. And yeah, it also is the, this removal is highly unique for Celestial, and it's probably the main reason why I would actually even consider this card, because frankly, I think that its draw effect is too slow. Although it is the only card in Heroes that is an effective +2 with no investment. So the draw 2 is very high impact recovery, even though it is rather slow. So yeah, it is, if you really want to go all in, or if you're a deck that wants to go all in or nothing, Celestial is okay. I personally wouldn't recommend it because of the cons I will start talking about later on. But the one low-key thing that is underestimated about Celestial is that it actually has the best stats out of all the level 4 Destiny heroes that you play. Obviously, all of them have 1600 attack because of Drill Dark, being able to special summon them from hand. So the attack stats are really irrelevant. Plus, all these will get the same amount of burn from Dystopia. But 1400 defense can sometimes matter, and this is obviously the one that you're going to be attacking with the most, just because of its removal effect. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And those are the some of the pros that I can. Yeah, those are some of the pros. As far as cons, you have to. It is by far the slowest of all the Destiny heroes to use. Like with the other two, you could at least get some kind of usage the same turn that you send it to the graveyard for the Fusion Destiny, potentially, or are always going to get some kind of value with at least on the opponent's turn afterwards. But yeah, you kind of just have to like put it in the graveyard and then wait a whole turn to be able to get something off of it if you have no cards in hand. And yeah, and also you also have to have no cards in hand. So you either have to have everything set, or you need to be in a losing situation to even use it, which kind of sucks in my opinion. It's not that great as far as convenience, as far as I would know. Even though I've only done a little bit of play testing with this card because I've honestly liked Draw Hand and Decider way more personally, but I know why people would want to run a card like this, even though it's not my forte. And then the last thing is that this card doesn't really work on its own merit. And what I mean by that is that it requires other Destiny heroes in the graveyard to actually function. It requires more setup beyond having itself in the graveyard, or summoning itself. So it really it needs to have the most maintenance, and it needs to have stuff to go with it. It's just high maintenance. And even though it's not necessarily a difficult thing to accommodate, sometimes you don't want to use your Malicious during that turn that you send it to the graveyard with Fusion Destiny if you don't have to. because you want to save it for stuff like Nibiru or hand traps, just so you can extend through disruption. So yeah, and realistically, being conservative with your extra Mali is by far the most important thing you can do with this deck, as far as saving yourself from Nibiru. So if you don't always use it or have it as a backup plan for next turn, then banishing it for Deciders on for Celestial is really stupid. So yeah, and that will do it for Celestial. As far as interactions with the other strategies, realistically, there aren't any others, because realistically, you're only using it once per duel. You know, there is no way to recycle banished cards with heroes, really, outside of maybe running Parallel World Fusion. But if you're doing that, what are you doing with your life? So, yeah. There really aren't any interesting interactions that Celestial has that the other two Destiny heroes do, but the other two Destiny heroes definitely do. And so next up, we will be talking about Decider. One that I've playtested, and one that I've heard other hero players swear by. And out of all the three, this one has the second highest amount of regional or tops to its name. Although given the number compared to the Celestial is substantially smaller, but it still has a few tops to its name. And on summon, it allows you to add a hero from the graveyard to hand during end phase, and if you would take effect damage while this card is in the graveyard, you can add it from grave to hand and make the effect damage 0. And the first effect is by far... Actually, I don't really know if that's the first effect. Yeah, first effect. If that effect is by far the best recovery that this deck actually has, this whole archetype. And even though it's during end phase, it is, which is kind of sucky, it is also the best card by far to normal summon out of the Destiny Heroes, because you can actually get its effect on normal or special summon, thank God. Which means that getting it back from grave with Cross Crusader is just as good as just normal summoning it. Which is, like I said, useful. You're able to get stuff like, say, Ferris during end phase, so that way things like, one thing I actually found pretty useful is actually to go Cross Crusader, summon back Decider, and then just activate Decider, link Decider and Cross Crusader into Wonder Driver, and then go in end phase and add back something that you can float into with Wonder Driver, which is very nice. And especially since Mali's back at 2, you're not always going to be going into Dread Decimator after you've linked into Wonder Driver, so sometimes it's just good just to leave Wonder Driver on the field, just so you can float into something. And the last thing I can say is that this card is also, like, low-key good about not losing in time, because random burn effects can't just float around in there, and if it's in your graveyard, you can just nullify it, and it adds itself back. So, against Winter Chill, the new hand trap from Eternity Code, this card is obviously great, because it's just free plus. The thing you negate, you get, if you link off the thing, it negates or fuse it off or use it for anything, you don't take the damage, and you get to add this card back, which is a plus. Which means more fusion materials for stuff like, just more fusion materials, period, so always a good thing. As far as cons, though, it does re-add in end phase, which is kind of slow. And sometimes you'd like to have the card back immediately, but if it would re-add that way, then if it did re-add immediately, this would probably be the best level 4 Destiny hero by far. So I can see that. The burn, and outside of in time, the burn reduction is kind of useless. I mean, there's no real way, like, I would ever, like, see resolving that outside of going into time. So, yeah. And out of all these cards, it's also the only Destiny hero that doesn't let you dig cards out of your deck in some way. It doesn't let you draw cards, and it doesn't really let you draw cards or anything like that. It doesn't really let you do that. But the graveyard re-adding is pretty solid, though. Although the biggest gripe I have with this card is that both effects are once per duel, which is absolutely abysmal. But sometimes you really only need it once anyway. So yeah, there are probably a few other interactions that are out there that I've yet to discover. I mean, I've only just discovered that interaction with Wonder Driver as of yesterday of recording this video, which is 6/19, which is the day that Toon Chaos is legal. Coincidence? So yeah. On to the last Destiny hero. We're going to be talking about Destiny Hero Drawhand, which is my preferred. And if you watch my channel, you'll most likely know what this card does. If you watch Rogue Hero, he also plays this card. You'll also know what it does. During the next standby phase after it's sent to the graveyard, it can special summon itself. And if it's special summoned by the effect of a hero monster, or yeah, if it's special summoned by the effect of a hero monster, you can make both players draw one card. So, first and foremost, the biggest pro is that this card is actually able to facilitate its own effect, meaning that you don't need to have things like Cross Crusader to summon from graveyard like with Decider, and it doesn't need any other graveyard setup like with Celestial. It's just able to summon itself for free as a body during the next standby phase, which can be facilitated with stuff like Fusion Destiny, Dangerous, Vion, and just being sent to the graveyard as fusion material being discarded. Stuff like that. And it's a free body during the opponent's standby phase, meaning if you get Nibiru and you have that match change, you still have Dark Law fodder. Which is actually something I didn't realize about Draw Hand, is that it summons itself during the next standby phase, not your next standby phase, which kind of made me like it less, but then I realized, oh wait, I can always have a free Dark during the opponent's turn for Dark Law, which is nice. And the draw effect does help, and speaking of Dark Law, the draw effect does play a lot in recovery, but it also lets you trigger Dark Law since both players draw. So what you could do is summon it from graveyard, and then activate its effect to make both players draw, and then chain mash change to it, and then send it away for Dark Law, which is something you can do. And speaking of the draw effect, I'd have to say the biggest thing about the draw effect is that it is optional. You do not have to use it, meaning you can summon it back during the opponent's turn and then just not have both players draw. And even in hand trap heavy formats like we're in right now, you can just choose not to use that effect because you don't want your opponents drawing into hand traps during your turn to potentially stop you. You don't want your opponents to draw into stuff like Nibiru, Ash Blossom, Draw and Lockbird, even though it's not being played as much. Stuff like that. And it has a lot of really good interactions with stuff like with Dangerous, because you can send it to the graveyard during your opponent's turn with Dangerous since it's a quick effect, and then be able to get it back during your turn, in which case you can fully take advantage of its draw effect, and it won't, and you'll be able to make plays with it. It does banish itself when it leaves the field, which is a fair restriction, but the fact that you can use it with stuff like Cross Crusader and Solid Soldier, Liquid Soldier, so many other things, means that it's one of the only level 4 Destiny heroes that you can actually use the effect realistically more than once per duel, which is very nice. Which is a point I've made abundantly clear in a lot of other my deck profiles and stuff like that. And as far as cons, the fact that it has to summon itself during the next standby phase after being sent, it can be kind of a pain in the ass. There are sometimes you don't want to summon it during your opponent's standby phase and it just has to sit in the graveyard until you summon it back another way. With something like Cross Crusader, which isn't the worst thing, but it's just, you really wish you had, it would be nice if you had that flexibility just to summon it whenever, really. But it can't be perfect. The opponent does have to draw a card as well, which can be a pain in the ass, because if they draw a hand trap, you might get screwed. But either way, it's still a net +1 for the hero player, because of the fact it summons itself for free, and then makes both player draw. So yeah, it's not that bad, but it's not like the greatest thing ever. And obviously, like I mentioned with Dark Claw, that can trigger it as well, which it is a con, but it can also be a pro. And lastly, this card's only a common, which I know, like, if I'm saying that, it's kind of like a cop-out con, but really, like, I don't have that many bad things to say about Draw Hand, really. It's just, maybe Megatons, please. I know Dark Neostorm is going to be in the Megatons. Maybe this will get, like, at least bumped up to a rare or something. Maybe a super. Same with Cross Crusader, but, These two actually come in hollows. Celestial has a secret and an ultra, and Decider has a secret. If you wanted to play like full foil heroes, I would recommend playing one of those two, but just the Draw Hand is only a common, sadly, so yeah. Out of all of these three, I would say that it's mostly up to personal preference which one you play. If you want to focus on a build that has the most amount of recovery possible, you should be playing Draw Hand, just because it's always something you can get. This card helps you play through Nibiru the best, in my opinion, because you are able to summon it during the standby phase after you get Nibiru, so you have that Dark Law fodder. And it's really easy to send on a whim, just with cards like Dangerous and Fusion Destiny. And just allowing you to get it into the graveyard anytime you want. Plus, it's not necessarily a hard card to have access to, since it is searchable with Rhoda, Stratos, Cross Crusader, Shadow Mist, a whole host of things. If you wanted to have a deck that wanted to have a guaranteed turn 2 play, Decider is definitely the card you want to play, because it lets you get back things like Stratos or Ferris. Solid Soldier, Liquid Soldier from the graveyard. Even though I doubt that Liquid Soldier is actually going to stay in the graveyard because you're going to banish it from Miracle Fusion. But, if you do and you want to actually get that normal summon back, you can get it back with Decider. But more often than not, you're getting back Ferris or Stratos. And if you really want to have, a massive turn 2 push that Decider can't really offer, you want Celestial because you want to be able to get those draw 2s, even though it is a little bit RNG. Like, just drawing into your deck and drawing things like the, like Mash Change or Fusion Destiny, or although, like, resolving Fusion Destiny, we've already banished 2 Destiny Heroes from your graveyard. It's kind of hard, but, it'll let you draw into bombs that'll help you win the game. So, it really is just preference, really. Celestial does see the most competitive success, so in order of most to least successful, it had to be Celestial, Decider, or Draw Hand. There are some tops for Draw Hand, but these two outweigh it far more in terms of results. Even though this is this is a more powerful card theoretically. So, yeah, that'll do it for this video. I tried to keep it short, but it's still like 16 minutes or something. So yeah, tell me what you guys think in the comment sections. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.